million in ARR. I'm going to show you all the secrets. I probably left out a bunch of stuff, and that's okay. That's what the chat is for and the question box. And obviously you can reach out to me after. It's martin@martinroth.com. Put it in your contact list. Let's get into it. So next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to teach you how to close your next 1 million in ARR. We're going to talk about a few different tactics about where the revenue comes from, how to think about it. It's going to be fairly high level, right? Because we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. But if you want to go deep on this, ask a question, reach out to me after, and make sure you stay until the end, because I'm going to tell you exactly how to get customers to hand over referrals. A lot of people do referrals the wrong way or ask for referrals in the wrong way. And so we're going to talk about how to get customers to actually introduce you to prospective new customers. Works like 90% of the time for the intro, not for the close. So if just fair warning, if it feels oversimplified, it's because it is. You got to stay high level on these things just because there's a lot to cover. And I'm baking in a lot of experience in a short amount of time. I'm also assuming that you would have at least $1 million in ARR. It is your next million, right? But if you have less than $1 million, some of these tactics will still work. It's all good information. And finally, I put this up every time. There's this thing called the forgetting curve. I like to call it the dummy curve. It's not that we are all dummies. We're just human and we forget things. So you're going to experience this information, and then within 24 hours, you're going to forget most of it. By this time next week, you will have forgotten almost all of it. And that's okay. Just, revisit the slides. I'll post this video on YouTube, and then I'll send it out by email. So revisit it or reach out. We could talk about it if you want to talk. So one thing I like to think about with revenue growth for any number, but we're picking 1 million just as a round number because everybody likes $1 million, right? What does it take to get another million? How do we shrink the world a little bit and wrap our minds around what are the numbers on how to get to another million? And I love this article from Christoph Jans. If you've been to any of the other ones of these webinars I've done, you've heard me talk about this. This article's from, I think, 2014. Yeah, 2014 down at the bottom. And it's an interesting, it's simple concept, interesting concept. There's a lot of ways to get to $1 million. You can get one customer that pays $1 million really hard, like probably long sales cycle, really expensive, lots of onboarding and customization, a lot of risk in one customer. You could also get what's at $1,000 a piece. It's 1,000 customers. Yeah, 1,000 customers at $1,000 a piece per year. And then every single combination in between, the infinite number of combinations in between. And so the job for you is, when you think about the next 1 million, I always like to think about the next million should look like the last million. So if your business is at $1 million or 2 or 3 or 5, look at your customer base, and whatever it takes to double, it's going to look a lot like the customers that you already have, right? You don't need to get fancy or try to do different channels. That's a lot of what today is about, is find what works and repeat that over and over again. So, do me a favor, post in the chat, how many customers will it take for you to get to another million? And the easy thing to do is, what's your average deal size, right? So if it's 10,000, then you need 100 customers. I helped you out. I did a little bit of the math for you. 5,000 average deal size, 200 customers. 10,000, 100, 20,000, 50, and on up. For today, we're just going to assume and talk about a 10,000 average deal size, because that's a good B2B SaaS number. It's about $1,000 a month. A lot of companies anchor around that size if you're in the transactional, transactional sales go-to-market. So what does it take to go get the next 100 customers? Like I said, the next 100 is going to look a lot like the first 100. And we spend a lot of time in sales and go-to-market really thinking about the ideal customer profile, right? So this is just a stock image of our ICP, really thinking about the economic buyer and the champion, what type of company it is. The more specific you can get about who the ICP is, the better off you are, and then the easier it's going to be to identify and close those next 100 customers. And I gave a few tools there that you could use, but the process is really simple. Go print out your customer list. I mean, literally print it out. Go download it in a PDF, print it out, and sit in a room with a whiteboard with colleagues if you have them, and go through each customer one by one. I like to sort it by spend. Not that how much people spend with you is is like a measure of how good of a customer they are, but it is helpful to see what types of customers spend what type of money on your product. And so you'll normally see like a long tail. Normally you're going to have 2 or 3 customers that pay a lot of money. And then there's going to be like kind of a meaty middle, and there's going to be a long tail of smaller customers, especially if you have a lot of customers. And I like to look at which customers are most profitable. And I want to be careful about using that word profitable, because it's not like you want to squeeze every dollar out of the customer. I see Ryan Beeson on this call. He knows this exercise because we've literally done this 1,000 times. You want to look at the customers that are like, they're happy. They're the ones that onboard quickly. They get it. They believe. They adopt the technology. They don't necessarily need to be advocates, but they're using it the way that it's intended to be used. These aren't your needy customers. These are the ones who they use it and they get the value. Those are the ones you want to focus on. I think one of the mistakes many companies make is they rush to go try to get more of their biggest customer. If you're like my experience, our biggest customers were often our most challenging customers because they required a lot more investment and a lot more handholding and a lot more time. I didn't want 100 more of our biggest customers because we didn't really build our company, our go-to-market, our support structure to serve the biggest customers. We loved having them. And sure, we aspired to get more customers like that, but we knew that that was not how we were going to grow to double our business. It was always really just like, what's right down the fairway or right down the middle of the street that we could go repeatably go after and get customers who are profitable, who use the product, who love the product. And then here's my like real trick or hack. It's not even a trick or hack. It's just common sense. Categorize your existing customer base. Once you have the ones that are like good, profitable ICP, you know who they are, get all the other ones out of the way. And then for the ones that are left, categorize them by either geography or industry. If you're horizontal and you sell across verticals, then industry is helpful. But if you're a vertical specific, like vertical SaaS, focus on geography. And the reason this works is because generally people in industries know each other if they're of similar size. And in vertical SaaS, like we sold into construction, if you're selling into Tampa, Florida, everybody in Tampa, Florida knows each other if they're in construction, right? And you can use this to your advantage when you're trying to go get referrals, or even just trying to share pocket stories and share success stories of existing customers. They're going to recognize those brands. It increases your hit rate in prospecting. It increases your close rate because the social proof is there. There's a lot of benefit to focusing either geographic or by industry when you're categorizing your current customers to go build your target list for new customers or ask for referrals. And then just a few really cool and helpful tools. If you're not using, Zoom Info and Apollo are really common. Clay is pretty sick. If you haven't used it yet, takes a little technical know-how, but it's got a lot of functionality and you can automate outbound through it. Snove is another one that's doing a similar thing. Data Lane, if you sell to like restaurants or very small businesses, check out Data Lane. It's a friend of mine's company, and they're very good at finding contact information for like the owners of businesses. And so it works if you call the main line, whatever is posted on Google, when you search for a business, if you can't reach the owner of the business, Data Lane is a great tool to go find that information. You could also use, what's the other one? True People Search and some of the other things that you may already know about to get good contact information. You got to build the list right. Like the list is so important. Speaking of lists, you got to map this out. Whenever you're trying to get 100 more customers, we think about like TAM, Samsung, total addressable market, serviceable, available market, and then the obtainable market is the one that are like right there, right in front of you, who you can sell to and who will buy today and who are kind of like market ready. Narrowing down and spending a ton of time to build that list, super important, especially for outbound. Okay, so you already have 1 million. You're trying to get another 1 million. You're trying to double your business as quickly as possible. There's only a handful of places that revenue is going to come from. And I'm not saying new customers, because I want to point out here, part of your increase in revenue should come from existing customers. We're going to specifically talk about selling into the install base in a little bit. But these are the 5 things. You're either going to work the current pipeline that you have. Some portion of it is going to come from inbound. If you have an inbound motion, which you definitely should. If you don't have an inbound motion, start writing content and producing content and putting it out on the internet. You will get customers to come to your website. It'll start with a trickle and then it becomes like the Mississippi River the more you invest in that thing. There's new outbound. We spend a lot of time talking about outbound because we have the most control over outbound. You can get referrals, which is kind of like a quasi outbound, inbound mix between, but it's, it's warm already because it's coming from an existing customer. And then I just mentioned it, expansion, upsell, whatever name you give it, new revenue from existing customers is that last bucket. That's it. What I'd encourage you to do after this call is sit down and think about which of these buckets are going to be the biggest contributor for you to get the next million. And every business is different. For with Levelset, when we were running that team, I could have told you current pipeline was probably like 30%. New inbound was going to be a healthy portion. Some was outbound. And then expansion was another healthy portion. So I don't remember what the exact percentages were, but I knew that referrals were not really driving our business. That wasn't a big part of it until much, much later, right? And here's an example. So what's the pie chart look like? Here's a fictional company that has 40% of their new revenue is going to come from outbound, 20% will come from referral, 20% from expansion, and then 20% from inbound. I like this soundbite, which is like, keep your main channel. I think especially when you're early, it's easy to get distracted by shiny objects and try to chase new channels, or the worst, and not to hate on anybody in the audience who is in business development or runs channel partnerships or relies on channel partnerships to source revenue. They can work beautifully for some businesses, but for most businesses, channel partnerships are not the way to go get your revenue. You want to control your own distribution. And that's one of those things that, like, you can chase these big partnerships and the big logo and you think it's going to deliver all this revenue. It just takes so much effort to make those partnerships work. Same thing with trying to go up market. If you're a mid-market company selling $10,000 deals, don't spend 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week trying to chase $500,000 or even $200,000 contracts or customers. It's not that it's a total waste of time. It's the distraction and the lack of focus. It slows down your progress with your main core customer, your main ICP, your main selling motion, your main channel. The next 100 is going to look a lot like the last 100. And so a lot of my advice is, like, just avoid the distractions and keep plugging away at, the center of the road, right down the fairway, same customers, same pitch, repeatable. That's how you can get further faster. Now, maybe you get lucky and you have a big enterprise customer come in that takes out 200 or 300,000 of that million. That's great. I'd rather that be the gravy on top than that be the thing that we're relying on to go get the next 100 customers. I think I covered everything here. Yeah. Focus on similar size customers, stick to your main channel, right? Building the target list. I'm not going to go deep on this. There's a lot of content out there about building a target list, but you have to build one. Like, this is, I consider it table stakes. You'd be surprised how many companies haven't even outlined who they want to go get as customers. And so it's like, lock yourself in a room, you and whoever on your team is going to be responsible for this. Choose the list of 1,000 companies that you want. A 10% conversion rate on 1,000 gets you your 100, which is not a high hurdle rate. Like, you can convert 10% out of 1,000 customers, and then you build a campaign to nurture those 1,000 customers over the next 12 months. I like to work them 200 at a time. If it's just you, each individual on the team can handle about 200 customers or 200 targets at a given time. Once you start getting over 200, things slip through the cracks. And when I say build a campaign, I mean, just create a schedule and have one touch point with each account every single week. Phone call, email, handwritten card, LinkedIn message, some other DM. Find a way to get in contact with them one time a week, every single week. And if you stick with it for long enough, it just works. Like, it's going to work. That's how you get this outbound motion working. And I'll talk about a little bit. I'll talk about one like a specific tactic you can use to engage with some of your, like, really high dollar prospects. It helps with warming up some of the bigger deals or even just regular deals. Let's talk about expansion. So this is a mistake that I made, I mean, for years, like 5 years. We waited way too long to invest in selling to existing customers. We just didn't have any process around it. Customer success owned it. And though they tried their best, customer success has so many responsibilities on their shoulders. Having them be responsible for asking for money is like, it's just too much. It's not fair to them. They're already on the front lines. They're handling so much inbound requests from customers. They have to be the trusted advisor for the customer. They're responsible usually for renewals and educating and training and coordinating and making sure that the customer is getting all the value. And then, oh, by the way, they also have to ask for more money whenever the customer goes over their usage limit or it's time for renewal and they need to go from legacy pricing to modern pricing or whatever the situation is. We like to split that out and give it the responsibility of the sales team. So the sales team is responsible for selling to existing customers. And I like to make a specific role, like someone who is an install-based account executive. And there's really only 3 things that they can do with existing customers. The first is they can expand the spend or contract based on the customer's usage. So, whatever your value metric is, if it's number of projects or contacts or widgets or whatever they have access to within your platform, give them a limit. Make sure that there's a limit associated with whatever their contract is. And if they go over, then go ask them to spend more money, right? It should be aligned with the value that they're getting. And it should be totally reasonable for you to go ask for more spend if they're using more than what they bought when they originally signed up. So expanding the contract based on usage. The second one that I mentioned a bit ago is moving from a legacy price to a modern price. I don't know if you're like me, we had so many customers that signed up on sweetheart deals way, way early in the process. And that's because we were still trying to figure out product market fit. But you're continuing to invest in the product and they're getting more value. It's totally okay to go ask them to spend more money. By the way, your price should go up like 5% or 10% a year, like based on inflation. Like you should have price increases built into your agreements, but nobody likes to get their price raised on them. Like you wouldn't like that if you were a customer, of course. And so I always just recommend, like, make sure that you have a strong reason for why you're asking for more money. And I like to time it around the renewal, right? So it's just a natural moment for them to review their relationship with you and make a decision that they want to continue working with you. Make sure that there's a ton of value there, right? Like start 90 days out, 60 days out from the renewal, wrap it in value, but you got to ask for the modern price if you have customers that are spending way under what your current pricing is. And then the last, which may be available to you, may not, just depends on if you are a multi-product company, but once you have more than one product, you should be selling that new product into existing customers. So that's it. The 3 ways: expand the agreement based on their usage, move from a legacy price to a modern price at renewal, or just increase prices at renewal, but do it in a respectful way that's wrapped in value, and then cross-sell new products into existing customers. And then, like I mentioned earlier, don't sleep on referrals. Referrals work. We didn't figure this out until way later in the process. So here's the hack. And I wrote just a simple email here that you could copy and paste and use and fill in the words that are specific to your business. But once you pick your 1,000 target customers and you're going after, you can ask your customers for an introduction. If you see that they're connected on LinkedIn or somehow connected, if they're in the same industry trade group or what have you, or even if they just live in the same city, you can ask if they know them by phone or by email. And when you ask, like 9 out of 10 times, if they know who that person is, they'll make the intro. But you have to do the work and make it easy for them. So here's where people go wrong with referrals. What they do is they say, hey, John, do you know anybody in your market that might want to use our product? And they'll say, oh, let me think about that. That's kind of hard to take action on. So instead, be super specific. Hey, I see you're connected with Mark Smith from Acme. Do you know him well enough to introduce us? We want to help them in the same ways that we help you. Here's an email or a short message that I wrote for you that you can forward to Mark to ask for the intro, right? So do the work before you ask for the referral. Be pointed in your ask, and you're going to get people who walk you right into new opportunities. That's like the fastest way to generate pipeline. You just can't do it at scale. but that's okay. All you need is 100 more customers. We're not trying to get the next 1,000 customers. We just need 100 more. So put referrals into your cadence and make sure you do the work to make it easy for the customers to say yes. This goes back to install base and just focusing on the happy, profitable customers. You have to fight churn. Some portion of your current install base is going to churn out between this year and next year. And so I just like to remember when you focus on the users that use, which is to say the ones that are happy, engaged, they get value from the product. Those are the ones who are likely to spend more. They're likely to refer their friends. They're likely to provide testimonials. They're going to support new product development. They're going to be a partner in this. And so when you focus on them, as opposed to trying to chase after bad fit customers, they're not bad customers. Maybe it's just not a fit. Maybe the product isn't the right fit for their business, or maybe they're not at a time and place in their business where they can adopt. That's okay. Let them go. Understand why they're leaving, but let them go. It's kind of like throwing good money after bad. You want to take that good money and throw it after the good. Throw it after the good customers, the people who are using the product, right? And then when you think about your funnel, right, and how do you optimize your funnel? This is it's just like a math trick. Any stage of the funnel, a 10% improvement falls straight to the bottom line. And so the thing to think about is find the 10% improvement that matters, and really find the 10% improvement that's easiest for you to make impact on. So is that top of funnel and generating pipeline? Is it middle of funnel and converting people to get to demos, or is it from demo to close? What is the 10% improvement that's easiest for you to go get? Put your attention toward that. That's going to accelerate your revenue faster, and just the funnel management and pipeline management, right? And then here's another really helpful tactic that you can use to generate pipeline. You have to be helpful, right? You have to provide value in every interaction. One of my favorite things to do, this is just a screenshot from one of these things that I did last month. And there's a YouTube video, there's a link. And so I'll reach out cold to folks, the title, how to convert more opportunities to customers in this case, in the email, and then just say, hey, the email is like fairly straightforward, simple, cold email. I'm reaching out because you're the founder of Acme Company. If you're like all the other people who are trying to get more revenue, you probably want to convert more opportunities to customers. Here's a link to a presentation that I just did on it. And you'd be surprised how many people will actually watch the content. And then so long as you follow up, you're going to generate more pipeline. But the key here is find something that is deliverable that you can send to them that's going to engage them and teach them and deliver value. And that's going to warm up that cold outreach. And so just when you think about building your prospecting schedule and thinking about the touch points once a week, find ways to generate helpful content and put it in the hands of your customers. They're going to be more likely to take your call when you follow up with a phone call, right? And then I'm going to run through this quickly because you've probably heard me do it before. My 4 keys to unlock a deal. 4 keys to unlock a deal. It's pretty straightforward. I do this on every single deal in the pipeline. I recommend everybody does it. Here are the 4 keys. Number 1, find your champion. You do not have a deal if you don't have a champion. A champion, someone who advocates for your product or service. They're going to stick their neck out. They're going to take the risk. They're going to fight through any sort of like internal resistance to get the deal done. They're going to go make sure that the executive looks at the contract, evaluates, gets it approved. And you got to find a champion that I'd say that has the juice. You got to find a champion that can actually go the distance in getting approval. You got a lot of folks out there, what do they call it? No influence, no authority. Ninas, they pretend to be champions, but they are not. And you got to develop your nose for how to spot what is a champion and what's not a champion. So once you have your champion, you can create a closing plan. Here's a sample closing plan. You can send it by email. You can make it more formal and put it in a PDF. It doesn't matter. You just have to have a plan. And what this communicates to your champion and to the buying group that you're selling to is that there is an evaluation process. If you don't have a process, we will give you a process. If you do have a process, we will follow your process. But we just need to put it down on paper. And the process I recommend is we identify the keys in each stage of the process. It's key stakeholder. What's the date of the step? What's the deliverable? When's the closing call? What's the timeline for implementation, and when's the go live? Start from when the value gets delivered, which is the go live date, and work backward to the current day, which is probably your discovery call or your demo call, right? I shouldn't have to say this, but I say it all the time. Schedule a dang closing call. There's so many companies that I've worked with in the last 12 months, and I go and look at their sales process, and then I just ask a sales rep to pull up their calendar and say, well, how many closing calls do you have scheduled? And they have to get out of their calendar and they go into their CRM, and then they're rummaging through their email. They don't actually have a closing call scheduled that's associated with all of the deals that they've committed in pipeline. Schedule a closing call. You don't have to actually watch them sign the agreement on the closing call. The closing call, the frame is really simple. Hey, we're going to get together, make sure everything's good with the agreement. If it's signed, great. We're going to talk about when your kickoff call is going to be, and we just want to make sure we're aligned. The call could be like 5 minutes long. It doesn't have to be long, but you're making yourself available if there are any questions for the customer. And more importantly, the call gives timeline and holds the champion accountable to getting the deal over the line. The third key is to confirm next steps. Every time you get off the call with your champion, you have to confirm the next step. And by next step, I mean literally a calendar invite on their calendar and on your calendar that they've accepted. And there's a clear action that needs to be taken between this call and next call. Always have a next step, confirm the next step, follow up by email, make sure that it's abundantly clear that there's another meeting that's going to take place. Deals, they fall out of pipeline. They go into no man's land whenever there's no clear next step. And then finally, compelling events. Compelling events can be any number of things. Usually they have an economic incentive. What compelling events are not are like, they really want to get it done by the end of this month, or any sort of casual mention that your champion says about how important it is. Compelling events are, hey, it's the end of the year and our budget goes away at the end of the year. We need to get this deal done before December 31st. In most cases, you don't have compelling events like that, so you have to manufacture them. I love manufacturing compelling events by offering discounts. You see this all the time. The best sales organizations in the world use discounts to accelerate deal cycles. To be clear, discounts are not going to convince somebody to buy your product. I'm going to say that again. Discounts are not going to convince somebody to buy your product. It's not a quid pro quo. Hey, look, if you sign up by Friday, I'll give you $1,000 off your subscription. That doesn't work. People can see right through it. It's kind of like a sleazy sales tactic, and it doesn't get to the real heart of the partnership, which is, you have a problem. We're going to fix that problem for you, and we want to invest in this partnership, right, by way of this discount. That's the spirit of the partnership. And once the champion and the buying group has already decided that they're going to buy the product and you have the closing call set, that's when you offer that discount and say, hey, look, I just want to make sure that we execute our agreement on the day that we said we were going to execute our agreement. And as a consideration, we want to invest by way of $1,000 toward your annual subscription. Discounts work to accelerate the deal. They don't convince customers to buy the product. It's really important. Many teams get this wrong, but you can use discounts to manufacture compelling events and control timeline. So got your champion, create your closing plan, you have your closing call, then you offer the discount. Takes time to implement this if you are going to implement the 4 keys, and you can go download it. It's on my website. I think I have that next. I'll show you the link in a second. And we're in and out in 30 minutes. A few more mentions from me, and then we'll open it up to questions. Implement these 4 keys. It'll help. It'll increase your close rate, no doubt, but you have to run it on 100% of the deals. So a gift, 4 keys. You're going to go to martinroth.com/4keys and download it. And I'm sending out copies of Pete Kazanji's Founding Sales book, which is a great book, like a play-by-play on how to scale up your sales team. And if you want more, there's 2 things. I have this Clockwork Prospecting course that you can go buy, because thank you for spending time with me. There's at least one thing I can go ask you to do. Teaches you exactly how we scale our Dream 100 campaign and just generating pipeline with your biggest possible customers that you ever want to work with. And then finally, if you actually want to work with me, go to martinroth.com/revup. Would love to hear from you, see if I can help help with your business. So I'm going to open it up to questions.